what Ethereum is doing in
Hello, everybody. Hello. How are you doing today?
Hi.
Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you to everybody out in virtual planet Earth who's sitting in on this awesome talk today. We're going to take a look at what Ethereum is doing in the everybody.
Has their client open to the show.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right, we'll take that again. Thank you, everybody.
Who was that? Yeah.
That was a fun little technical glitch. So I do think that, we've got everyone's names and positions here on the screen. For the most part, all of our panelists are very well-known individuals in the space. I will take a quick pause just because I learned something yesterday. I want to make sure our readers know. Tosh Dienes from the Ethereum Foundation is pronounced Tosh, and so I'm going to do my best to get that right during our talk today. And I think where I want to start is I want to put John Wolpert in the hot seat because he was the only one who wasn't able to join us yesterday for our warm-up talk. And John, you're one of the leading faces and characters in the Ethereum enterprise space. So I want to ask you if you could take us through a quick walk. What is the magic bus?
Well, the magic bus is behind me. I don't know if you can see it. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you.
Yes, you're coming in loud.
Okay.
How did this branding come about? Why are you so passionate about it, and how does it relate to Enterprise Ethereum?
Well, gosh, the magic bus was a phrase I was using before we even had the name Baseline for the Baseline protocol, which launched last month and kind of broke our little corner of the internet. We can talk a lot about that. York was involved, Tosh was involved, the Ethereum Foundation was involved. And in a way, it's funny. The magic bus was just simply to say, "Hey, there's so many finance people in blockchain, and so it colors our thinking a lot." And I said, I'm not going to think about this in terms of finance. Let's Ernst & Young, Microsoft, and ourselves. We said, let's think of it as IT, as boring old corporate IT. After 5 years of hype, maybe boring is the new exciting. And so what were the things that corporate IT, CISOs, security officers would hate about using the mainnet in corporate IT? We listed them all. We came up with 10 really good reasons never to use the Ethereum or any mainnet, any public mainnet, or really any blockchain. And we said, well, let's make all of those irrelevant. And what are you left with? And what you're left with is never put data, corporate data, on any kind of blockchain. Put it where you should, in your traditional system of record, where you can lock it down, you can have control of it, you have custody, you don't have to worry about lots and lots of computers you don't control having access to it. You don't have to worry about somebody pointing an AI at the ledger and sussing out all sorts of naughty things about you. Instead, use the mainnet as a message bus, as a piece of middleware to connect your system of record with other people's systems of record consistently and on a pay-as-you-go basis. I'll stop there.
So I want to get to what the magic bus became quickly, because obviously what the magic bus became is in large part what everybody is here for. But I just love the sort of branding that you did. It seems somewhat ad hoc. I don't imagine there was a marketing team behind that. I remember the first time I saw you use the phrase magic bus was in a private DM long before it was public. Why, for you, what does it mean to change the thinking about the way enterprises were interacting with the mainnet? And what about that phrase magic bus sort of got you so excited and gets you so excited today?
Well, the magic bus was just saying that the mainnet can be thought of as a message bus with magic powers, a magic bus, if you will. And also that way you get to sing the Who song, Magic Bus, which for people in my age group is just super fun, right? Magic Bus. So that was kind of, but the pivot to the mainnet working group, which Tosh is the chair of, and Aya supports, and that York is co-vice chair of. The whole point is that in 2015, we were all incapable of saying blockchain without getting in trouble in the corporate America, in the corporate world. And then halfway through the middle of 2015, we were all able to use the word blockchain because we kind of laid the foundation for why it would be safe and okay to use. And that kind of touched off the private blockchain or permission blockchain world. Now we have to say, hey, it's okay as an executive of a company to say public blockchain.
Now that we all had a chance to hear John sing the Magic Bus, which was really my only main objective was starting there. Let's go ahead and expand that to the other speakers. Tosh, so John gave a nice transition there talking about the mainnet working group. Could you kind of just walk us through a little bit, in just literally a sentence or two, what is it that you do at the Ethereum Foundation, and then kind of bring in the work at the at the mainnet working group and how that relates to the Magic Bus here?
Sure. So I'm on the ecosystem support team at Ethereum Foundation. So ecosystem support is kind of a broad term. It includes the grants program. So we give grants to projects in the ecosystem to support them building things on Ethereum. Also, we do kind of proactive outreach to support different projects and people. And so about late last year, we started a new initiative, which is kind of enterprise ecosystem support. So outreaching to enterprises to understand how enterprises can benefit from Ethereum and what the roadblocks are and what we can do to facilitate this happening. So part of that was the formation of the mainnet working group within the EEA. So historically, the EEA has been focused on private permission blockchains. But so with the formation of the mainnet working group, there's now a shift or broadening of focus to include public Ethereum mainnet. And so the mainnet working group, the mission, as John puts it, which I like, is to make mainnet ready for business and business ready for mainnet. So understanding what business needs are and how we can align mainnet with those needs and educating people on how to use it, building solutions that need to be built to facilitate them using it. That sort of thing.
And how did you get from the main networking group, and correct me if I'm wrong, but main networking group exists within the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, right?
Correct. Yeah, there are many working groups within the EEA. The main networking group is the first one that's focused on public permissionless Ethereum.
And so how do you get from the main networking group to Baseline, to one of the biggest accounting firms in the world getting involved, to one of two companies ever to be valued at $1 trillion, even though it was only briefly getting involved? How do you go from a working group at EEA to some of the biggest companies in the world starting to get involved there? I think this is an important question to address as other people are looking to do the same thing. This is an open question.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these companies have been involved with the EEA for a while and are starting to recognize that maybe this is a time for a shift in thinking around the use of public permissionless chains versus private chains. So, Microsoft, Consensus, E&Y were involved in the formation of the main networking group as prior EEA members and forming members of this working group. And EY and the Consensus of Microsoft has also been working together on this Baseline project for the last several months, since around, I guess, the time the main networking group was kicked off. So they kind of happened in parallel. With Baseline is adjacent, I would say, to the main networking group. So within the main networking group, there are several task forces. One of the task forces focuses on enterprise system of record integration, and Baseline definitely fits in that category. That's what it's about. So they are sort of adjacent and complementary, but Baseline does not completely exist within the working group. It's kind of its own thing.
So before we get into too much detail about Baseline, I'd love to ask Aya if you could. You described yourself, I think, very accurately yesterday as sort of a bridge between the Enterprise Ethereum Foundation. I'm sorry, the Ethereum Foundation, the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. And I like this setup that we have here because we can kind of look at so many of the different pieces to the puzzle in one glance with John and Tosh and York and yourself involved. But for our audience, not everybody has that vantage point that you have as standing at the bridge between these two influential organizations. Could you just kind of talk to us a little bit about what you saw as a board member that was going on behind the scenes as you were going from Magic Bus concepts to working groups and protocols?
Sure. First of all, I said the bridge between EF and EA. I think EF does for an entire ecosystem, where our intention is to really bridge the gap between that like contribute open source developer community that we mainly interact with, we have been mainly interact with, and also the enterprise side. The same players can exist in both sides, but we thought we could help facilitate, better education and communication between those, and so that both sides can understand the challenge that each side are having, but also at the same time that the changes that are happening to the platform or on the research level or on the development level, those kind of conversation. You can find information online, but EA was a platform to have that type of conversation. And then there wasn't really proactive effort from our side to really provide help and support for them to be able to ask questions. And then what I've been seeing, this is more for me personally, because I've been in the space for a while. I used to get questions from enterprises or for corporations, more about, the level of questions that we are getting or I'm getting is slightly different now. And I think education is always necessary because the state of Ethereum is changing. The state of also the society is changing. Before, it wasn't really reasonable. It was actually natural for enterprises to be skeptical about using Ethereum blockchain for them to create, business model and everything. And now looking at the state of Ethereum, the progress that the platform has made, and education needs there because they need to learn the changes. And it's happening every day, and it's not like one thing you can just learn by reading a paper. So that is the kind of effort that we are trying to facilitate, and we could always try to fill the gap that is missing, that is happening in the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, can I chime in on that from the other side?
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing I'm a board member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance and was also a founding member going back a number of years, where Vitalik was always very supportive, but we didn't have actually direct connection, so to speak, into the Ethereum Foundation in a formal way. So having Aya sit at the table and some of her representatives, in the different working groups is really an amazing opportunity. I think it's also a reflection of the time where enterprises are becoming more curious about this open internet style utility, that is the Ethereum Mainnet, and that's basically both the thesis of the Mainnet working group as well as Baseline evolved from the question, what has to be true for enterprises to transact across a public utility like public Ethereum? And so, they're, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask a follow-up on that, still keeping the spotlight on you. So you, John obviously comes from enterprise land, co-founder of IBM Blockchain. But I'm going to, you are the face of enterprise as far as our panel is concerned. You're, the only guy right now who's currently employed at these giant firms. So I'm going to ask you to speak on behalf of every enterprise on the planet, if you don't mind. But John kind of teased us earlier with these 10 things that need to be true for enterprises to use blockchain, or maybe flip that on its head, 10 reasons why enterprises would never use it as it currently exists. I think that I like that idea because it's really concrete. It's not an abstract problem, but 10 really clear things. So let's not do all 10 given our limited time, but if you could highlight a couple, say 2 or 3 of the biggest things that need to be true for enterprises to learn Ethereum, or to build on the public Ethereum mainnet.
Yeah, I mean, all you really have to do is put yourself in the shoes of a CISO or a compliance or risk officer in a large enterprise, and it's pretty easy to get there. So, very simple things like, how do I actually do a transaction on mainnet? What currency does that accept, right? That's one problem, right? It has to be solved, right? Because typically treasuries are not going to hold tokens, right, or crypto tokens unless they are specifically a trading firm or an exchange. So that is a sort of a one problem. Second is service level agreements, right? How do you know that the system is up and reliable and running, and that you're going to get something in a certain finite period of time. And then the obvious one is privacy of data, which John talked a little bit about earlier. And it's not just privacy of data, but it's also privacy of metadata. While I, as an enterprise, want to know and be able to verify that I'm transacting with a known endpoint that I can identify as another enterprise, I also don't want the public to know the volume or type of transactions that I'm doing across this public utility, right? Or else you could basically infer all kinds of things, right, about the activities that we're doing together. Those are just a few.
So thank you, York. Open question for everyone. Having had several conversations over the last 6 months or so with folks at Consensus, at the Ethereum Foundation, at Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, not universally, but increasingly, I'm seeing a change in the way that people are talking about enterprise blockchain, and specifically how they're talking about the relationship between a public blockchain and a private blockchain. I think that in the early days, we would make it a really strong point, at least as a reporter, whether or not a company was using the public permissionless Ethereum or they were using a private permission version of Ethereum. And I've seen that some people going all the way up to the top, and I'll go ahead and drop a name. Joe Lubin recently kind of corrected me, like, it's not really 2 separate blockchains. This is more of a way that we were talking about it. And I'm curious, and an earnest question here, were we talking about it wrong? Was the media, were developers talking about it wrong when we were talking about 2 separate things? Is this a technological change that has started to occur, or is it really just a marketing play and to get enterprises more comfortable with using public mainnet?
No, so playing the role of the enterprise here, I talk about this from the perspective of a technology stack, and having lived through the technology stack of Web 2.0 and the internet as it grew up through the 90s and beyond, you can make a very parallel assumption that the technology stack is a technology stack. It's how you actually go and deploy it with various add-ons, right, that allow you to change the nature of what you're doing, right? And so very similar journey as the internet had, where the first couple of years, really most people didn't care, right, what was going on. In fact, a lot of people were scared, right, of what do I put on the internet, let alone what do I transact over the internet. So this technology, I've always talked about it in this way, where it is the same technology, it's just how you deploy it that is different. And then some of the, what you might call plugins or, methods of consensus, for example, might be different.
Anyone else want to chime in on that? Is this more of a change in the way that we talk about the relationship between public and private, or is there a more profound connection there that's happening?
Well, look, I built a big share. Oh, Aya?
Aya, go ahead.
Go ahead, Aya.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to wear a hat as a normal person, and also our side. I mean, for us, when we talk about this decentralized, fully decentralized blockchain, is really like we think about the visions, like what kind of society we want to see. But that's our vision. But then, like, for anyone who really try to build things, they have to think about the realistic things, and then those terminology, permission or whatever is really, this is not like, I'm not really wearing EF hat now, but it is really, I was having a conversation with Oracle Forum team yesterday about their procedural principles that they're trying to publish soon. And we started this conversation about the guidelines to give applications. It is really so hard to have one single paper of guidelines for both like permissioned and also permissionless chains, but you have to coordinate these work for the public to be able to understand, and also to be able to actually do the right thing. But at the same time, I think it's actually what we have to care is what are the purpose that you are trying to accomplish by using what. So that's why I think enterprise sides have their own reasons to find the best way or combine little things. That's my take. But of course we have more expert here.
To kind of build on that, is there really such a big difference between what individuals would demand of a public blockchain and what enterprises would demand of a public blockchain? In the end, will these two concepts sort of merge? John?
Well, look, if you're I've been a startup CEO a bunch of times. Oh boy, we got bad lag. I'm going to stop again. I'll pause. Go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
All right, I'm going to be the moderator, and it's John. Go.
Okay, good. Yeah, bad lag. I walked right over top of each other. Sorry. So yeah, I've been a startup CEO, and I've been in a bunch of big companies, and in both cases, if you're dealing with personal information of human beings, if you're dealing with grandma's pension, or anything financial, you've got the same problems that an enterprise does, many of them. So no, I think information security is information security. And if we can get this right, we can maybe make that more generalized for everyone, and not something where you have one set of rules for one group and different set of rules for another group, which is why I, for one at least, and I don't want to speak for the others, this is a hot topic, think that the Ethereum standards ought to be Ethereum standards. There shouldn't be enterprise standards versus everybody else's standards. There should just be one set of standards for Ethereum, and that should cover the mainnet and any private uses.
Awesome, John. Thank you. Well put. So the baseline protocol was originally sort of positioned in some statements and articles that my colleagues have written about the technology as a solution for enterprises. But through that lens, baseline could eventually be more than that. I'm curious if there are any examples that you guys can talk about of live enterprise blockchain projects that either you are personally working with or something that maybe you've discovered that a peer of yours is working with that really, really gets you excited. I want to go back to that, the title of our panel, which is How Ethereum is Breaking Ground with Enterprises. And if we could each give just one concrete example, again, of something that you're really excited about, or that a colleague of yours is doing. And if we can bring it within the baseline context, that would be great. Aya, I'm going to put you on the spot because you were asking earlier about the examples.
Because I'm going to probably break the baseline of, because I already mentioned I don't really like this definition of enterprise. And I'm actually expecting EA to make the definition broader. One of the things, because you asked me what I'm excited about is, I've been hearing stuff like there are things that are how decisions are made from, like that from top down and then from like grassroots activities, or that there are a lot of things we can learn, even big enterprise can learn. One example is I've been hearing about these startups that UNICEF Innovation is funding or supporting, and then they also get fund from us to support, like from this crypto fund that I think you know very well about. And one of the team is called OS City. It's based in Mexico. They're providing this platform as a service, and like a simple and easy way of your platform to share all different types of information. Users can actually pick between from 5 different blockchains, and this is exactly why the purpose of each blockchain is important. And then basically it's more like a community wiki with tamper-proof. And because of the COVID situation, this is getting more attention, and they're getting a lot of requests already that they're making a lot of achievement, working with the cities, but also governments. Actually, a few governments want to work with them. And that kind of thing, it really excites me. So I just wanted to share that. But I probably
that's a perfect example. I'm going to interrupt you because we got to wrap it up here. York, give me a minute and a half explanation of an enterprise project that is getting you excited right now.
Well, I was actually very excited. I'm glad Aya brought up UNICEF, because their crypto fund is a primary example of how you provide transparency from donation or donor to the fund into projects and get multiple levels of transparency on how the money is being funded or spent. Great example, and that is a combination of all different types of entities, right, of varying sizes that could potentially contribute to that. And it is one of the primary qualities that you can get from this technology. I would say my most exciting technologies right now are around sustainability and green energy, where the ability to actually create a provable real-time auditable green energy token that is essentially, you can prove a green energy green kilowatt hour essentially came off of a particular green device, and now you've got something way better than a carbon credit, which is basically solved by auditing, and actually be able to measure the provenance or track the provenance of that token, and trade it if you don't need it, as an example. So I think that's a very exciting area.
Thank you, York. Tosh, you want to go ahead and close this off for us here?
Sure. So first, I'll mention an application I learned about just this week, which I thought was pretty cool, which is the business-to-business application on Ethereum Mainnet. So Cloudflare, the CDN content delivery network, has a CAPTCHA service. So many times you get an annoying pop-up that makes you click on all the stop signs or click on all the bridges before you can go to a website. That's a CAPTCHA. They've been using Google's CAPTCHAs, but now they're switching to a different system called HCAPTCHA. And the work that people are done, so when you go to the website that uses HCAPTCHA, the work you're done can be used to train neural networks. And the website host gets paid in tokens on Ethereum for the work that their users are doing. So I thought that was very interesting. But more importantly, I want to plug.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to take a second to plug a survey. So the main networking group wants to learn about all the applications for Ethereum mainnet in business. So we don't have all the answers. We want to hear from anybody who's got ideas about applications for mainnet. We've been conducting a survey. We're going to close it out soon. But if you are in the enterprise space and you have ideas about applications that you would like to be able to run on mainnet, but maybe you can't today because there's some block or some barrier, or maybe you can and you just want to give us your input, we'd love to hear about it. So I'm unable to provide a link, but I've noticed that if you go to Google and you search for the words EEA mainnet survey, the top result will take you to a link to the survey. So just search the words EEA mainnet survey.
Thank you all so much. John, you started us off with the magic bus, so no examples for you, but everyone else, thank you all for taking the time to speak, sharing your insight. I'm looking forward to staying in touch about your progress. And again, all of our virtual audience members, please join me in virtually applauding these members and get on social media and thank them all for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.